in anything we do, anything we undertake at Sesame, we always start with an advisory board, whether it's autism, whether it's traumatic experiences, whether it's our work in the refugee camps. So we will start by bringing in advisors to help us develop the curriculum. First we'll do need assessments and also advice on where we can have the greatest impact given our skill set. And then Anne has been an advisor from the very beginning of Sesame Street and Communities, and then more specifically around a more recent sort of area of content that is designed to help children in foster care, children in homelessness, and particularly children who have parents who are suffering substance abuse. With the opioid crisis, sadly, this is something that's more and more. But we bring these advisors in. We then work with, research is so important. So we will do formative research around the content we're creating to make sure that this is what we're successful in what we're tackling, that children are learning from what we're creating. And then we'll always do summative research to prove, are we achieving what we intended to, and to iterate so that we can improve along the way. So when you ask what the products are, you'll see a little bit of it. I mean, it will be content and video that will model, using these engaging characters, model for children strategies, techniques for stress reduction. But again, don't think of that as that alone. That's going to be combined with the caregiver and the training guides. We even do webinars to train those service providers who will be using this content. And it can vary depending on the needs of that particular organization, whether they're using mobile apps for home visitations, whether it's print material, whether it's activities for learning centers. So again, it's similar. I mentioned the refugee work we're doing. It's the very same model. We're going into Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon, and our partner there is the International Rescue Committee. So we'll create an all-new broadcast that will reach children, that will be in Arabic, and reach children in all 4 countries, but then we create the content with those Muppets in their language and designed to help children cope that those IRC home visitors will be using to reach children and families who have really suffered the most. So again, the tools vary. One of the things we do is we listen. Once we have a partner like the Children's Place in Kansas City, we're constantly finding out what worked, what do you need more of. And quite frankly, the reason we've just begun doing work around foster care, homelessness, and substance abuse of a parent is because that's what we were hearing from our partners that they needed more of.
So Anne, take us into the Children's Place and walk us through an occasion when you or someone who works on your team will use these resources with a child, a caregiver, an aide. How does it work? And what responses do you see?
You know, it's really incredible. And as Sherry has so eloquently stated, it's important for the children, but it's actually really important for the grown-ups to have this content because it is really hard to talk about these things. We don't know how to talk about incarceration, or we don't know how to talk, if we should even talk about the traumatic event. And so when you see this content that sort of provides a generalist education around, these are some of the things we should teach children. We should teach all children this so it works for everyone, but a child that's experienced trauma needs to learn what safety means and how do we create safe space. How do we handle our big feelings, and how do we regulate ourselves, and then how do we improve these relationships with the people around us? So with those kind of 3 core areas, we have our staff use this with families, and depending on which area or topic they're working on, they may pull up a video, they may hand out a worksheet. One of my favorite stories, though, is we have a home visitor who went into a home with a grandma. And this grandma was raising her grandson because his mom had experienced substance abuse and was not able to take care of him. This grandma was really struggling with this young boy because he didn't want to attach to his grandma. He was grieving the loss of his mother. He didn't understand why he'd had multiple moves and what was going on. He was only 3. Our home visitor went in and showed Grandma a video called Big Bird's Comfy Cozy Nest. And they watched it together. And Grandma listened as our home educator then added to the fact that we have to teach some children about safety because they have not experienced true safety. So it's a concept you teach. So as our home educator explained that to Grandma and then showed her the video, it started to make sense to Grandma. So when the little boy came home from school, they all watched it together. And this little boy didn't even sit on his grandma's lap. I mean, he was not connected enough to her. And he stood off to the side on the couch, and they watched it on the iPad. After it was done, the grandma looks at him and was able to say, "You are safe here." That little boy paused, looked up at his grandma, crawled into her lap, and gave her a hug, and then said, "I love you, Grandma." So right there, it was a concept that we all understand, but it needed to be taught to him. And through Big Bird, talking about his nest, talking about the things that make him feel safe, this little boy could understand that this is what Grandma was trying to do. Mm-hmm. And then my favorite part of that story, if that wasn't good enough, is the next week when our parent educator went home, Grandma was so excited. She said, come in, come in. And she had a very modest, one-bedroom apartment. But in the corner of her front room, she had gotten a cardboard box. And she had put toys and blankets and pillows around it and created kind of that fort. But she said, I created him his own safe space. So he knows that even when he's in our home and he is safe, he has a special space for that. And that came from the content of Big Bird's Comfy Cozy Nest.